Good morning. Today, the Public Accounts Committee was supposed to meet to start the consideration of a non-confidence motion in this Liberal government. Rather than allow that to happen, Justin Trudeau has selfishly shut down Parliament to avoid accountability. That non-confidence motion was being moved because after 9 years of Trudeau's government and this Liberal Party running the country, Canadians have been suffering through so much misery. Families going to food banks for the first time in their lives, families with two incomes, sometimes having to go to food banks to supplement their groceries. People turning down thermostats as the Liberal carbon tax has driven up home heating and utilities. Homeless encampments in tent cities popping up all across the country. 1,400 tent encampments in Ontario alone. Violent crime rising by 50% since the Liberals took office. All of this has caused so much suffering and hardship, and Justin Trudeau kept desperately clinging to power, even as more and more of his own MPs expressed non-confidence in his government. And rather than do what was right and allow the Canadian people to have their say in a carbon tax election, Justin Trudeau has run and hid from accountability and cowardly announced his resignation rather than give Canadians the choice, putting this off till sometime in March. All this at a time of great uncertainty that Canadians are facing. We've got an incoming administration in the United States threatening our country with tariffs. We've got very poor economic news in the past few weeks. Our dollar has been sliding, and as I said, 6 consecutive quarters of per capita GDP declines. All so that the Liberal Party can sort out its internal mess. Once again, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have proven that they put themselves ahead of the Canadian people. Nothing will change with a Liberal leadership race. I mean, if we look through some of the candidates that are being speculated about and some who have even indicated that they will likely run, let's look at Mark Carbon Tax Carney, as he's known in political circles. He holds the position, he is currently Justin Trudeau's chair of his economic task force. He is one of the main architects of Trudeau's record. He loves the carbon tax so much that he was even fighting against any exemptions being given to Canadians struggling with home heating costs. He supports all of Justin Trudeau's policies. He was one of the key architects of this Liberal administration. Chrystia Freeland was there all along the way, applauding and cheering and voting in favor all of Justin Trudeau's policies that doubled housing costs, that drove up inflation and interest rates, that let dangerous and repeat offenders out on the streets, prioritizing the rights of criminals ahead of the rights of law-abiding Canadians. And she was even prepared to blow through her already insane $40 billion deficit guardrail right up until the moment that she was told that she would be demoted right afterwards. All of these speculated Liberal candidates will just be more of the same. Even Christy Clark, who is Premier of British Columbia, who increased the carbon tax by 200%. Canadians don't need this uncertainty and chaos as Liberal leadership contenders try to compete to show Liberal members who loves the carbon tax the most, who wants to run even bigger deficits, and who wants to plunge our country into even more misery. Canadians need a carbon tax election so we can put an end to all the misery and suffering and all the chaos that Justin Trudeau has selfishly put our country in. To consider the fact that Canadians don't even know when the new Prime Minister will be chosen or what process. This is all to be sorted out when we're just less than 2 weeks away from an incoming U.S. administration with these tariffs threatening our country. This was an incredibly selfish and self-centered move, once again proving that Liberals put themselves and their party ahead of the interests of Canada and of Canadians. And all of this could have been avoided, by the way, if Jagmeet Singh had have actually put his actions where his words were. Remember in September, he had that very theatrical display where he pretended to rip up the agreement with the Liberals, came right back into that House of Commons and voted time and time again, 8 times, voted confidence in propping up Justin Trudeau, even as more and more MPs, not just in opposition parties, but even in the Prime Minister's own party, had expressed their non-confidence. So that's why Conservatives are once again calling for Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party to please, for the sake of Canadians' well-being, for the sake of those struggling families going through so much hardship. I mean, think of 1,400 tent encampments in Ontario. Life wasn't like this in Canada before the Liberals took office, and it won't be like this in Canada after Canadians vote them out. It's not too late. They can still do the right thing. They can call a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote for a new government, for strength and stability to weather our country through these challenging times. I'll be happy to answer a few questions. I'll just allow my colleague to say a few words in French. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Andrew. Bonjour. Je suis ici aujourd'hui, c'est parce que je devais participer au comité des comptes publics où on allait déposer une motion de non-confiance à l'endroit de Justin Trudeau. Mais tout ça, maintenant, est tombé parce que Justin Trudeau, hier, a choisi de proroger le Parlement. Proroger le Parlement, pourquoi? Pour se cacher, pour ne pas faire face à la réalité de ce que les Canadiens et Canadiennes souhaitent, c'est-à-dire une élection le plus rapidement possible. Il n'a pas voulu faire face à la musique. Il a préféré agir comme un lâche et placer les intérêts de son parti et surtout ses propres intérêts avant ceux des Canadiens et Canadiennes. À un moment qui est très, très, très difficile, vous en conviendrez tous avec moi, dans 2 semaines, il y aura l'investiture d'un nouveau président aux États-Unis et la menace d'imposition de tarifs de 25 de frais de douane. Dans les régions du Québec, dans les nombreuses régions du Québec où il y a plusieurs PME, dont la survie même dépend des exportations aux États-Unis, c'est extrêmement inquiétant de voir l'état dans lequel le pays est actuellement dirigé, c'est-à-dire qu'il n'y a pas de dirigeant. Un premier ministre qui s'en va, un premier ministre qui quitte, une course à la direction d'un parti politique au lieu d'avoir une élection générale qui aurait pu nous donner dans 36 jours un nouveau premier ministre fort pour faire face justement à cette menace-là et pour mettre fin aussi à la souffrance des Canadiens. Je vous rappelle que Justin Trudeau et son administration, au cours des 9 dernières années, ont doublé la dette nationale, ont créé le chaos en immigration, ont créé le chaos aux frontières. La liste de tout ce qui a été brisé par Justin Trudeau et ses libéraux est tellement longue que ça prend des pages et des pages dans les journaux juste pour énumérer l'ensemble des choses qu'il a mal fait. Donc, la chose à faire pour Justin Trudeau, ce que les Canadiens souhaitaient, c'était de déclencher des élections. Et malheureusement, comme je l'ai mentionné tout à l'heure, on commençait le processus aujourd'hui, au Comité des comptes publics. On commençait le processus avec les partis d'opposition, qui nous aurait amené à un vote de non-confiance à la fin du mois de janvier. Mais encore une fois, comme les libéraux et Justin Trudeau ont choisi de se mettre en avant plutôt que les Canadiens, bien, les Canadiens n'auront pas cette chance-là et on va vivre l'incertitude parce qu'on ne sait pas trop ce qui se passe en ce moment du côté des libéraux. On ne sait même pas encore les détails de la course au leadership. Quand est-ce qu'on va avoir un prochain chef du Parti libéral? Quand est-ce qu'on va avoir un prochain premier ministre? Donc, c'est totalement... c'est du nombrilisme et de l'égoïsme de la part du Parti libéral de ne pas avoir hier fait la bonne décision. Plutôt que se rendre au bureau de la gouverneure générale pour proroger, le premier ministre aurait dû se rendre au bureau de la gouverneure générale pour dissoudre le Parlement et demander des élections. On se retrouve devant quelle situation aujourd'hui? On se retrouve devant une situation où les prétendants au poste vont commencer à faire campagne. Mais qui sont-ils, ces prétendants-là? Si on parle des membres du cabinet, ce sont tous des membres du caucus, des membres du cabinet qui ont voté pour chacune des politiques qui ont amené le Canada où il est actuellement, qui ont fait en sorte que Justin Trudeau n'est plus apte à diriger le pays. Mais l'ensemble de tous les candidats potentiels, Mme Freeland, Mme Annan, M. Champagne, qui voudraient prendre sa place, bien, ont tous dit oui à ces politiques-là. Mme Freeland, qui a renié le jour de son énoncé économique le document qu'elle était prête à déposer si elle n'avait pas été congédiée par Justin Trudeau le vendredi. Parce qu'il ne faut pas se faire d'histoire, là. Mme Freeland a déposé et accepté ce document-là, l'énoncé économique, avec un déficit de 62 milliards de dollars. Justin Trudeau n'a pas eu le temps de réécrire. Entre 9 heures le matin puis 4 heures quand il a été déposé à la sauvette à la Chambre des communes. Donc, Mme Freeland était absolument d'accord avec tout le contenu de l'énoncé économique de l'automne. D'ailleurs, M. Trudeau l'a dit hier, elle a participé activement à l'ensemble des décisions de son gouvernement au cours des 9 dernières années. Puis M. Carney, bien écoutez, M. Carney, depuis 2020, c'est le conseiller spécial de M. Trudeau en matière de finances, parce qu'on sait que pour M. Trudeau, les finances, ce n'est pas une question très importante. Ça prenait donc quelqu'un avec lui pour le conseiller, et cette personne-là, c'est Mark Carney, qui l'a nommé d'ailleurs président de son groupe spécial sur la croissance économique. Donc, c'était le ministre des Finances fantôme qui conseillait M. Trudeau sans avoir à rendre des comptes aux Canadiens pour tout ce qui conseillait le premier ministre, tout en étant président d'une compagnie qui tirait beaucoup de profit de nombreuses décisions du gouvernement. Donc, on se retrouve aujourd'hui dans une situation où les Canadiens qui auraient souhaité avoir une élection se retrouvent devant un premier ministre qui n'en est plus vraiment un, parce qu'il va quitter. On ne sait pas trop qui va le remplacer. Et malheureusement, bien, les Canadiens continuent de souffrir parce que pendant ce temps-là, il y a encore des milliers de Canadiens, des millions de Canadiens qui vont dans les banques alimentaires. Il y a encore des problèmes d'immigration dans nos bureaux de comté. À tous les jours encore, on fait face à des problèmes d'immigration, des gens qui ont de la difficulté à obtenir leurs papiers, des gens qui se sont fait promettre des choses qu'ils n'obtiendront pas. La seule chose à faire, ça aurait été de faire en sorte que M. Trudeau, plutôt que de penser au Parti libéral, pense aux Canadiens et déclenche les élections.
La prorogation, ça vous empêche de faire quoi?
Bien, il n'y a plus de comité. Il n'y a plus aucun comité parlementaire qui peut se réunir. Donc, tous les comités où on pouvait tenir responsables les ministres, on pouvait tenir responsable Justin Trudeau pour les actions, entre autres, on ne peut plus parler du projet de loi C-65 sur la réforme électorale. Tous ces comités-là sont maintenant arrêtés et tout doit repartir à zéro. Donc, c'est ça que ça veut dire, une prorogation. C'est qu'on a mis le...
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire pour vous? Vous dites qu'on voulait garder le gouvernement Trudeau redevable. Comment vous êtes plus capable de faire ça si c'est prorogé?
Bien, la première raison, c'est simple. Aujourd'hui, on devait se réunir pour discuter d'une motion de non-confiance à l'endroit de Justin Trudeau. Malheureusement, on ne pourra pas le faire parce que le comité n'aura pas lieu. On ne pourra pas déposer ce rapport du comité à la fin janvier comme on voulait et déclencher des élections en réitérant le fait que la Chambre n'a pas confiance dans Justin Trudeau. Il ne faut pas oublier qu'on est dans le système de Westminster, c'est au gouvernement de démontrer qu'il a toujours la confiance du Parlement. Et malheureusement, Justin Trudeau, qui est encore premier ministre, n'a visiblement plus cette confiance-là. Jack Mitzink est prêt à défaire le gouvernement. Le Bloc est prêt à défaire le gouvernement. C'est sûr que si Jack Mitzink l'avait fait plus tôt, à l'automne, s'il avait joint l'action à ses paroles, on n'en serait pas là aujourd'hui. On aurait un nouveau gouvernement conservateur responsable pour reprendre le contrôle de notre économie et des finances publiques et de toute la situation chaotique dans laquelle se trouve le Canada actuellement. Mais malheureusement, il voulait attendre sa pension au mois de février. Il l'a. Maintenant, il était prêt à voter non-confiance. On était très, très heureux de ça. Justin Trudeau a trouvé une porte de sortie et malheureusement, c'est les Canadiens qui vont payer le prix.
Mr. Trudeau's resignation affect the Conservatives' election strategy?
It's clear that the country has had enough of Liberal policies. Nothing has really changed in terms of what the Liberal Party will be offering Canadians. We're about to have a leadership race where all the candidates have either voted for or been the chief architects of Justin Trudeau's terrible policies that have inflicted so much misery. So we're going to continue to highlight that, regardless of who the Liberal leader happens to be. Canadians didn't get tired of looking at Justin Trudeau's face. It's not like they got sick of his voice. They're suffering under his policies. The reason why so many Canadians are so angry at this government is because of the misery that the Canadians are experiencing. They're the ones that are having to put that roast of beef back on the grocery store shelf. They're the ones who are moving out of their homes, into their cars, and into tent cities. It has nothing to do with the personality of the man. It has everything to do with the policies that have been inflicted upon Canadians, and every single Liberal contender for that leadership race has been a vocal cheerleader of Justin Trudeau and his policies. And we are going to remind Canadians of that terrible legacy, no matter when the election is and no matter who happens to be leading the party.
On the leadership race, as we know, there have been concerns about foreign interference in past Liberal nomination campaigns and others because of the party's membership rules. What is your assessment of that? And do you have concerns about it going into a leadership race? Do you think the party ought to change the rules?
Well, we've had major concerns with how Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have handled foreign interference. They've dragged their feet. They've resisted accountability. They still refuse to release the names of members of Parliament that were listed in the Security and Intelligence report. Justin Trudeau has never taken this threat seriously. He has sat on reports and recommendations and done absolutely nothing about it. So we are concerned, but we believe the best way to deal with all kinds of threats to Canada, including foreign interference, is to have a new Conservative government that will take these things seriously. Let's let Canadians decide. Let's let Canadians vote in a carbon tax election so we can close the chapter on this terrible Liberal legacy of 9 years of misery inflicted upon Canadians and finally start a new chapter.
On the tariffs with the U.S., do you speak of strength that Canada needs? So what is your colleague, Jamil Jaravani, best friends with J.D. Vance, doing to advance Canada's cause to get a carve-out?
You're right to point out that when a country has a position of strength, it's able to negotiate much better. And it's clear that Justin Trudeau has been personally very weak in dealing with the U.S. administration of both parties, by the way. Of both parties. Justin Trudeau had to capitulate to Donald Trump the first time he was president. He then backed down to President Biden, failed to get an exemption on softwood lumber or Buy America, failed to get new energy exports to the United States. So Justin Trudeau has been incredibly weak personally, and he has put our country in a position of weakness by imposing a carbon tax on Canada when the United States doesn't have one, chasing away jobs and investment. There are fewer voices in the U.S. fighting to maintain access to Canadians' markets. So our entire party, our entire caucus is focused on making Canada stronger, bringing in economic measures that will grow our economy, make more investors around the world fighting to get into Canada instead of fighting to pull out of Canada and invest in other countries.
On foreign interference and the rules about the race that my colleague was asking about, you say the Prime Minister and his party have not released the names, but your leader has not looked at the report unredacted to see the names, potentially names that concern him, and take action. So now that we are going into an election clearly in the spring, what's your party doing for foreign interference to make sure that there isn't any in your party and in nominations?
Well, we all know why Justin Trudeau wanted to silence our leader. He wanted to put our leader, Pierre Poilievre, in a position where he could know information but do nothing about it. Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister today. He has the power to release those names. He has the authority. No.
Of nominations, of signing nomination papers. So what's your party doing?
It's very clear. It's very
what's
clear.
Your party doing
you
on
asked
foreign
a question about the report, so I'm trying to answer the question that you actually asked, even though you might not like the answer I'm giving. Justin Trudeau has had years to respond to the threats that have been reported to him through CSIS, through our National Security Agency. He refused to do it. It took brave whistleblowers to raise the alarm, and only then did this Liberal government do anything about it. So I'll let party officials answer questions of that nature, but there's no question that had we had an election in the fall, we could be in a position of strength. We could be tackling all these issues. We could have a much stronger economy. We could have a stronger administration with a clear mandate from the Canadian people, limping along for the next few weeks because Justin Trudeau backed down from a fight, because Justin Trudeau recognized that he had lost the confidence of the House of Parliament, but refused to let the Canadian people decide an election. I mean, that's essentially what he's done. He's essentially, by proroguing and shutting down the Public Accounts Committee, he's effectively moved the inevitable date where he will face a non-confidence vote from the end of January to the end of March. Those are 2 extra months of uncertainty and chaos and misery that Canadians will have to live through, and it's put our country in an incredibly dangerous position when dealing with the United States.
You said when Liberal ministers are going to be distracted by their own leadership race when it comes to the tariff threat from the U.S. In the meantime, Canadians are wondering what the Conservatives can do in the meantime to protect Canadian interests from the opposition benches before we head to an election.
Well, he's eliminated the functions of the Parliament. He's shut down Parliament. He's put a closed sign on the chamber, and he's shut down the committees that were going to do exactly what you're saying, litigating his record and coming up with recommendations on how to undo the damage of the Liberal government for the past 9 years. Instead of doing that, he shut down. And you are right, and our leader is right. Now we've got cabinet ministers who are supposed to be preparing for the incoming U.S. administration, supposed to be dealing with the economic challenges that they themselves have caused. They've been pretending to say they're going to be coming up with all kinds of economic plans, and rather than doing that, they're going to be calling backroom insiders and well-connected senior Liberals to raise money and build power coalitions within a political party. They put their internal party intrigue ahead of the best interests of Canadians. It's shameful, and the best way to fix it is to call a carbon tax election so that Canadians can decide. Thank you very much.
La prorogation, non, mets-en français un peu, là. Un peu de français, come on.